very much for coming along to another of the Fair Luxury open house sessions. Just a couple of other things to mention. We are currently undertaking a survey. So for all of those of you who are involved in some way with using gold, either in your jewelry pieces or in some other way. So it would be great if you could take a few minutes to have a look at the survey. I'm hoping that someone will, oh, there it is. It's appearing in the chat now. And have a look at those questions. And if you could answer them for us, that would really help. There's just a number of questions about using responsibly sourced gold. So that would be great if you could help us with that. The other thing to mention is that our next open house will be on Thursday, the 29th of July. That one will start at 10 a.m. again, because that one is going to be covering a pledge update. So the Fair Luxury Pledge, which I know many of you have already taken up. We will be looking at progress that's been made. So if you have made some good progress, then please join us and share with us. We'll be running a few breakout rooms about the different topics that people are getting involved in as part of their pledge. And of course, it's never too late to take a pledge yourself. So if you haven't already joined us on the pledge journey, then please come along as well, and maybe you'll get some suitable inspiration to take part in the pledge. That would be great. Okay, so on to today's event. I'm really excited to be able to introduce Hayley Henning from Greenland Ruby and Pia Tonner from Moyo Gemstones. And they're going to be talking about their respective mining operations. Hayley is the Chief Commercial Officer at Greenland Ruby, and they are mining, as the name suggests, of course, rubies and also pink sapphires in southwest Greenland. Pia is the Chief Marketing Officer of Moyo Gemstones, and they have discovered what I'm pretty sure is the world's largest deposit of peridot, which is located in China, and they are developing their mining operation there. I'm sure most of you in the audience as jewelry designers, you're aware that most coloured gemstones come from fairly basic, what we call artisanal mines. So often these are remote locations, just very simple holes in the ground, miners using their bare hands to extract the gemstones. And what we're going to see and hear today are two businesses who are really doing much more than what we would expect in these basic artisanal mines. So they're really raising the bar in the world of coloured gemstone mining, and also taking a very progressive approach to the way that they're running their operations. So I'm not going to obviously talk too much about that. They're going to do that very shortly. But it really is interesting, especially for me, as someone who operates in the mining area, that we're seeing very progressive, very pioneering mining companies developing these two today. The format for today will be that firstly Pia and then Hayley will speak for approximately 15 minutes each about their mining operations, and then we're going to have around 30 minutes for Q&A. So as we go along, please feel free to put your questions in the chat, and we will come to those later. And I'm very much hoping that as long as our technology behaves itself, we are going to have some great images as well through the talks. So I think on that note, I'm going to hand over to Pia to start her presentation. Welcome, Pia.
Thank you. Well, firstly, thank you, Stuart, Susie and Amanda, Anna, the whole team at Fair Luxury. Really appreciate you inviting Hayley and I to come and speak and introduce our mines and what we are aiming to do as a company, each company. So I won't waffle on too much. Just a bit of background about me. Before joining Fuli, I worked at Gemfields, one of the largest colour gemstone mining companies. I lived out in Mozambique for a while, out in the jungle, dealt with snakes, spiders and everything else, and worked with rubies and emeralds in Zambia, and then worked on both sides. I've been in the luxury goods industry for a long time, and in mining probably the last couple of, sort of put it all together, around 10 years. So a long time, and seen a lot and witnessed a lot and seen some met amazing people and seen some amazing gemstones. So now I'm at Fuli Gemstones. I joined there in November 2019, and it was quite, I went on a 10-day interview, put it that way, and I literally saw everything, which was amazing because it was a really remote mine, working in China, which was brand new for me. And yeah, amazing experience, and I couldn't wait to sign up to join them because it was just phenomenal. So I think I should start with the map of where the mine is, and explain how you get there. So just to, I'm not sure if everybody can see this. So you fly into Hong Kong. As with me, I flew from London to Beijing, so I skipped the Hong Kong bit first of all. So the mine is right up here in the northeast province of China, in a place called area called Jilin, really remote. It, like I said, it has 4 seasons in this area. When I went out there in November, it was around -20 degrees, so I wasn't prepared at all. I'd taken my mining boots with me and a winter coat because London was cold, about 4 degrees then. So it was quite an unusual temperature change for me. I don't think I'd ever been in anything so cold. But I'll show you what I saw as I came in. So this was the Changbai Mountains. So the mine itself is set inside the Changbai Mountains, which is actually stunning. Really beautiful area of China, which I hadn't even been aware of until obviously I went to visit it. So it was amazing as I was coming in, and I could see this frosty looking sort of atmosphere outside. I think we could go to the next slide. So this is the track to the mine. So the actual mine itself is set in woodland, in a forest, and there's around 100 protected species of trees in this forest and where the mine is located. So there's a road track all the way to the mine, but everything else around it is protected. So we work with the local government to protect the trees, along with working with the farmers to protect that area. And it's quite different to any other mine I'd ever experienced. Most other mines I'd been to on the big large scale mining are big open cast mines that are 1 kilometre straight long, about half a kilometre wide, whereas this is tunnel mining. And then I just wanted to show you what it looks like in springtime. So maybe we could flick. So this is actually the Changbai Mountains again in springtime. So the mine is situated here. So I think I will probably talk a little bit about the mine and when it was discovered, and talk about the peridot. So the mine was actually originally discovered in the 60s by some geologists, and nothing happened with it. It was just left as a mine resource. And then around 7 or 8 years ago, our chairman and his business partner had obviously read about this mine, and they'd been in jade mining before, and they wanted to go and see if this deposit was worth investigating and exploring and actually developing it as a mine. So the same with any other large scale mining operation, you have to get the blessing, and you have to get licenses from the Chinese government, the local government. You've also got to get the buy-in from the local communities around that area for them to accept that you would bring this mine to fruition. So that took a good 7 or 8 years to bring all of that together. We had an SRK survey done and other geological surveys done in the area. And actually the people from the SRK team couldn't believe what they found. So this mine is phenomenal. It is, when it's fully operational, which I'll go into later, it will produce around 60 million carats of olivine peridot a year, which is huge amounts, and huge amounts to process. However, because it's that huge, we aren't going to suddenly just bring loads and loads of peridot to market, because we want to do it in a salient manner and in a way that makes sense. And as Hayley will probably explain to you as well, that, you know, you get a mine, when you start producing from a mine, you get a real pyramid of production. So you get about 9% at the top of the big juicy gemstones, and then you go down into different brackets of the type of product that comes out, that then you can work with young designers, you can work with big brands, etc. So we've got to really analyze what's coming out to know how we're going to develop the business. Now, what else is phenomenal about this mine is that there are deposits of peridot elsewhere in the world. So you've got Arizona, New Mexico, you have deposits in Burma and in Pakistan, all producing different types of peridot, all greens, but different variations of green. Arizona did really, really well in the 90s, but it was always producing quite small crystals, which is fine for doing calibrated goods and long, big production runs. But if you wanted to do an amazing suite, like you'd find in the V&A, like a big, juicy gemstone suite of a necklace and big drop earrings, it's really difficult to find that. Anything over 100 carat, 150 carats in the rough doesn't exist really. You'll get sporadic supply from places like Pakistan and from Burma, but nothing that gives you a consistent supply. However, this mine, just even during the geological survey, we pulled out a large 301 carat rough, which is huge. And I'm sure you probably know a little bit more. I don't want to sort of tell you things you might already know, but when you're cutting gemstones, you get different yields from different gemstones. So with peridot, you normally get a yield of around 32%, higher if the gemstone's clean. So that 300 carat, which we're never going to cut because it's so special, we're actually going to probably put it in a museum, would have cut around 100 carat peridot, which is still phenomenal. So there's all these amazing things with it. Some other really amazing things are that it's completely natural. It needs no treatment whatsoever. So it comes out the ground looking like this. I don't know if you can see that. There's a piece of rough. Wow. That's about 30 carats piece of rough. I don't know if you can see that. And because it needs no treatment, it just needs, it's quite clean as well for peridot, which a lot of peridot has chromite and lily pads and inclusions, but this product's really, really clean. And there's one, I don't know if you can see it. This is what's so amazing about it. It's got a slightly higher iron content, so it makes it this really zingy green. Also, for me, it looks like kryptonite. It's pretty amazing, really natural gemstone. So I'll jump ahead a little bit about so the mine itself isn't in full production yet. So the mine, I've missed some slides. Thank you, Susie. So let me tell you something else about the area. So I'll tell you about the area, sort of jumping around a bit. If we go back to the first picture. So when I went on the visit out to the mine, I saw this phenomenal Buddha. So this Buddha, this whole area is just breathtakingly beautiful. You've got the forest and this amazing scenic view as you're going there, which is quite different to some of the other mines I've been to. So this Buddha sits in Dunhua, in the main town that's next to the mine. And I'm like, well, how did this Buddha get there? Just to say, if you jump to the front, the picture again, it's huge. This Buddha is 40 meters high and sits on top of the mountain in Dunhua. And I'm like, well, tell me about the Buddha. Tell me. So go back to the picture again. So I'm stood up there looking at this Buddha having this ethereal moment. And actually it was built in the sort of around 2000, by a female Buddhist monk who wanted to have an area of worship in that area. And that Buddha, so the temple is the temple of the 10,000 Buddhas. So you go inside the temple, there's 9,999 little Buddhas lining the walls inside this temple. And that's the 10,000th Buddha on top of the mountainside. So it's just incredible. It's really, compared to my time when I went to China and Beijing and things around 7 years ago now, it was really polluted, really unwelcome. I just didn't feel really great there. And then when I went there again, it was just incredible how much the country has moved forward, and the next generation of people coming through really care about the planet, what they're doing, and they're worldly wise. They read books. It's just really refreshing to see like change in attitude towards things. And obviously it's happening globally, but it was just breathtaking. Let me go to my next. So I'll tell you a bit more. So this is inside the mine. So the peridot itself is it's only one of 2 gemstones that are formed deep in the mantle of the earth. So the other one is diamond. So it gets pushed up to the surface from volcanic movement, obviously millions and millions of years ago. But literally you go inside the mine and there's the peridot in the wall, inside the wall of the mine. And again, it's just, you can't believe that this deposit is like this. You know, Hayley will probably say that when you go to an emerald mine, you go to other mines, you're going to go dig deep and then you're finding a tiny little pocket of gemstones, whereas this is there in the wall of the mine. And now what other phenomenal thing about this mine is, and this is where it comes really important and something that's really close to my heart, is that what do you do with all the stuff? You know, you've got a lot of rock movement if you're a mining company of this scale. What do you do with everything else? You've got to move the rock. The rock costs money to move. It's, you know, and then you're disturbing the earth. So what's going to go on with all of that ore? So this peridot, which you can see here, is set in basalt. So the basalt is actually can be repurposed and is used to build railways, road networks. It can be used in metallurgical things. There's so many opportunities to use it, and there's demand for it in the construction industry and other things. So that material, the basalt, is really key as well. So it's got a purpose. It's not like you're hoiking out and just dumping like rough there ore there. It's actually going to get repurposed, everything you bring out. And then another thing we discovered, which I think we can go on to the next picture. How am I doing for time? Am I going for time? Okay, I'll be quick. So this is another really like amazing thing. So peridot belongs to the family of olivine. So if I go back a slide, so this here is a thing called olivine sand. And scientists have discovered that actually you can use it to deacidify oceans. So there's obviously early studies for it, but things like the coral reef, which is in danger, if you take enough olivine sand, it deacidifies the ocean edge. So it's another material that can be repurposed and used in a positive way. It's also a really great natural alternative. It's an abrasive, so it can be used to sandblast buildings like the House of Parliament. Again, it's got lots and lots of purposes. So everything that's coming out of the mine, the gemstones, the basalt, the olivine sand, is all reused. And then I just wanted to, I just wanted to show you again, which I showed you in real life. So this is the rough and how it comes out. So nice, big, juicy, clean gemstones, which again for peridot is quite unheard of to get this sort of level. And then when it's cut, which we can flip. So this is when it's cut. So another amazing thing about peridot, is that it has a really high refractive index. So if it's cut really well and you look into the top of the gemstone, you get a doubling of the facets. So you get this real fire coming back at you from the gemstone. Really amazing. And just to go back onto our structure and what we're going to be doing is that we are vertically integrated. So we are mining it, grading it, sorting it, and then we cut and polish it. So we have a small cutting polishing facility in Jilin up near the mine. We also do work with other cutters globally, but again, they go through a procedure of who we vet everyone that we work with, and it all depends on where that gemstone is going to end up. Is it going to be in watches? Is it going to be in fine jewelry, like this partnership we did with Liv Luttrell? So we're all about bringing the industry together, working with the likes of TDI, working with GemCloud, finding the right solution for us to have traceability for our gemstones. So it's not like you can go and buy a package off the shelf and it'll fit your mine. All the mines are different. We've got to have the right partners who can actually work with us from the tracking of the moment the gemstone's mined out the ground, to the day it's weighed, to the day it's graded, to the day it's sorted, to the day it goes to the cutting facility, from the cutting facility to the designer or the brand. So all of those things have to fit together. And you've also got to get third-party auditors to come and check that what you're doing is actually legitimate as well. So you're not just hot smoke and mirrors type thing. So we're working with various different bodies who are helping us shape that up. So by the time we start mining in June, when we come to full mechanized mining in hopefully June, July 2022, around that time, we'll have the different systems in place that we can offer full traceability. I think that's it. I kind of jumped all over the place, but I think I was just conscious of time, and I hope I've covered everything. But obviously we've got time for Q&As after.
Yeah, that was a great start. Thank you, Pia.
Is that all right? Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. And loads. Yeah, there's so much to cover, isn't there?
I know. It's just I'm trying to like get it all out.
Right. Let's move on then to Hayley. Thank you, Hayley.
Great. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Good morning. I'm Hayley Henning. And thank you, Stuart, for your introduction earlier. And I just want to say to Pia how great it was to hear about this incredible peridot mine. I am a fan of colored gemstones in general, and I just find it absolutely fascinating. So thanks for sharing all of your stories. So it's my turn. I've got 15 quick minutes to go through a lot of what I've got to say. And I'll just start briefly by just telling you a little bit about myself. As Stuart had introduced me, I'm Hayley Henning. If you don't already know, I'm the CCO of Greenland Ruby, as the name suggests, a deposit of ruby and pink sapphire in Greenland, which is absolutely fascinating in itself, and a little bit of what I'm going to talk about now over the next 15 minutes. So I was tasked with sending a couple of images in to Stuart and his team so that I could speak to those images and talk, as a foundation for what I'm about to say. But I will, of course, be veering off topic as we go along, because I feel like I do have so much to talk about. But let me start right here. With this image, and as you can see, I've sort of managed to get that in my background too, with my technology improving daily with the Zoom. So what you're seeing here are the Northern Lights, of course, another natural phenomenon in Greenland. And when we talk about the rubies and pink sapphires from Greenland, of course, first and foremost is the origin of this incredible deposit of gem quality ruby and pink sapphire. And as you can see, absolutely stunning. I think I really don't need to talk too much about where Greenland is. If you don't already know, it's this massive land mass sort of situated in the Arctic Circle, wedged between the North Americas and Europe. Very few people have been there. It's sort of one of these parts of the world that's, even though you may probably have flown over it, it's kind of difficult to get to, and you have to actually go through Denmark, Copenhagen. The flights fly from Copenhagen or through Iceland. And actually, a little bit about Greenland is that it is ice covered. Pretty much most of the island itself is ice covered, up to 3 kilometers of ice in some of the central parts of the island, and the north, the coastal regions do thaw in the summer months, but pretty much it is ice covered and has been for many, many years. That the climate change is a whole nother conversation, but these rubies have been recently discovered on the southwest coast of Greenland. And this is a part of the country that does actually thaw in the summer months. You can see in this image a picture of our processing plant with the big red box, literally in the middle of nowhere. It's an hour flight south of Nuuk, which is the capital city of Greenland. And just to give you an idea of this operation, everything is helicoptered in and out of our mining operation. And there it is. You can see it during the day, and actually during the summer, you can see there's no ice in this image, and you can clearly see our processing plant, which is believed to be one of the most, or it is believed to be the most sophisticated colored gemstone processing plant in the world. You can just imagine in this location, everything has to be brought in, and yeah, it's really quite something to see. What you're seeing too in this image is a lake where the deposit actually was discovered in the 1960s by the Danish Geological Survey. That's one of the questions I get all the time is, oh my gosh, you know, how is it that this deposit was ever found in such an isolated location? Well, it was discovered in the 1960s by the Geological Survey after local inhabitants in this region were familiar with literally red crystal in the rock formation in this location. And upon further discovery and research, tons and tons of research, you can imagine, it was discovered that it was actually corundum in the rock. And this area was called Apalutok, which is the Greenlandic word for red. So it refers to the ruby-bearing rock in this location. Our deposit was actually, is actually in the bottom of what we call a dead lake. There is nothing in that lake, it's just a pool of water. And the company dredged the lake 10 meters. We can actually mine in this location. And when we have completed our mining operations here, water will be returned to the lake, the processing plant will be disassembled and removed, and it will appear as if nothing has gone on in this location at all. So you can imagine just setting that up in that way itself has been quite an incredible achievement for the company. The Greenland Ruby was established in 2017, which is when we were issued the license by the government of Greenland, and we started mining at that time too. So you can imagine this has been quite a couple of years of researching exactly what the yields of the deposit are, what the gemstones look like, how they produce themselves, and how actually do we process and ultimately bring these gemstones to market. If you'd like to just move on to the next image, let's see what we have there. Oh, here's me in the mine. I'd spoken briefly about the processing plant. I'm inside that big red box, as you can see, and what we've got behind is a DMI, dense media separating conveyor belt. And you can imagine this process, being a hard rock deposit, is highly complex to actually remove the crystals out of the rock. I don't know if you can see me clearly here. I have a piece of this ruby bearing rock. Does everybody see that nice and clear? So you can just imagine how complex it is to separate the crystal from this rock formation, which is actually amphibolite, if anybody's wondering. And yeah, it's different from an alluvial type deposit and highly complex and requires a lot of technology just to remove the crystals from this host rock and process. And we are processing around 100 kilograms of rough per month. So it's quite a substantial yield in terms of ruby and pink sapphire production. And as Pia had alluded to earlier, you know, it's really, you know, it's sort of in a pyramidal structure in terms of what that production yields. You really get the gem quality and the really nice quality material at the top of the pyramid, very, very small percentage of what actually comes out of the ground. Let's see what the next picture is. Oh, and here you can see some of the images of what we've got. Because of the hard rock deposit, you know, we determined that our rubies and pink sapphires really produce absolutely gorgeous cabochons. The shape of the crystals lend themselves to these gorgeous, juicy gems. And you can see in this picture, the color is absolutely stunning. And our yield actually ranges from deep red, what is known as pigeon blood red ruby in our industry, right through to the light pinks and what we call icy pink. And then we've also got some of our off colors, or what we call our Northern Lights selection and range of colors, which is sometimes, you know, the grays and the purples and even some instances of sort of a greeny gray color. So from the deep dark red right through to the icy pinks and everything in between. We've determined our color spectrum as having 10 shades of red and right through to pink in the Northern Lights. Actually, what you see in this picture is a little bit of our marketing, because, you know, obviously marketing a gemstone like this has been an enormous task. You know, how does one introduce a gemstone from a new origin is the million-dollar question. And this is, of course, what we've been doing over the last 4 years, is bringing these gemstones to the attention of our industry and, of course, beyond, through designers, working with us, collaborations, as Pia had mentioned earlier. And of course, you know, telling the story of the incredible origin and explaining what a ruby from Greenland is and why is it different from a ruby from any other origin. And this is what we've been working on over the last 4 years. Here I am in the pit with one of the lady engineers, geologists in Greenland. And Pia alluded to this too. You know, this is a highly industrialized operation and very, very different from other colored gemstone mining operations. So from that point of view, we really are, you know, setting the bar quite high and leading by example in the colored gemstone industry, because this type of technology, this kind of industrialized mining is just not happening in our industry. So in a way, it's our responsibility to show and to set an example on how to bring these gems into the marketplace in a responsible way. Not only the gems themselves, but, you know, from an environmental impact point of view, from social, health and safety, security, etc., and the list goes on, you can imagine. But that's what we're doing at Greenland Ruby. And in fact, we are the company is the first RJC colored gemstone mining member for this very reason. It's so extremely difficult to achieve these goals within our industry. But we have really been very good at that so far. Here you can see an image of us flying over Greenland. This is typically what it looks like. I had spoken a little bit about it a few minutes ago. This is a massive island, approximately 5 times the size of France, with a very small population of about 50,000 people. So, you know, there's a very, very sparsely populated Greenlandic local communities. And when you fly over the country, this is typically what you see, and it's absolutely exquisite. Lots and lots of snow and ice, and of course a lot of attention on Greenland lately. Well, in terms of climate change and what's happening in the Arctics. And yeah, so actually, you know, when I talk about rubies and pink sapphires from Greenland, you know, I really am met with great interest and fascination of, you know, wow, you know, we had no idea that this country actually produces ruby and pink sapphire, and yeah, up until now they haven't. And when we talk about Greenland like this, you know, this is a country that has a lot of mineral interest, I should say, that has not yet been explored. So this is something that's, you know, starting to happen in Greenland. And actually Greenland Ruby is the only gemstone mining license issued by the government of Greenland. So, you know, we're quite nicely advanced from that point of view. It's the first time the country's ever done anything like this. So you can imagine that even from that point of view, we really do answer a lot to the government of Greenland. We are in a partnership with them. Their license was issued by them to mine, market, and sell these rubies and pink sapphires in the most responsible way. And we are, you know, very much involved with the government of Greenland from that point of view too. So you can imagine we tick all the boxes in terms of exactly how it's done. Here I am on an iceberg, which is really quite fun. You know, visiting there has been an extraordinary experience, and in huge contrast to what I've done previously in my career, which was working a lot in Africa, also in colored gemstones. But you can imagine this is something, you know, just so unusual and so absolutely fun and extraordinary really, there's there's no knowing how old these icebergs may be, millions and millions of years. And in actual fact, the geologists who have researched our deposit and our gemstones tell us that the rubies and pink sapphires from Apalutok are the oldest on Earth, believed to be nearly 3 billion years old. So this is an extraordinary fact too. And how do we know that? Well, they measure the rock formation in this part of the world in terms of time. And it's believed that Greenland was amongst the first landmass on Earth to form, and our crystals have literally been growing in the rock formations since time began, which is really quite unbelievable. So when we talk about these gems being the oldest in the world, we are also, the newest and one of the newest deposits in the world, and certainly the most sophisticated. Just a little bit on what I'm doing here. I'm receiving a check from one of the founding members of the Pink Polar Bear Foundation, which was initiated by Greenland Ruby. It's our corporate social responsibility arm. A percentage of proceeds from every gemstone that we sell from Greenland Ruby goes into the Pink Polar Bear Foundation, which is concerned not with polar bears, but with international polar research in all disciplines, human beings in particular, who are affected by the cultural effects of climate change in this region. So I am receiving a check here from Ulrich Hartmann, who is one of our founding partners of the Pink Polar Bear Foundation. And like I say, everything that we sell a percentage goes into the foundation. And although this is a newly established organization, we hope to, over time, really make a huge difference to what we're doing on the ground in Greenland in terms of supporting education, university students, PhD students, as well as cultural activities in Greenland. So as the name suggests, it is not about polar bears, and it's certainly not about pink polar bears, but the pink is the representation of the color of our gemstones. So this is a little bit of what makes us responsible, but I have a whole list of that, and that's probably for another conversation, but that each gem is tracked and traced. This image really shows you also clearly this red that is a part of the host rock in this part of the world. But each gem is tracked and traced from the mine site through processing, cutting, polishing, and treatment in Thailand. So the rubies and pink sapphires from Greenland are treated with borax, which is a heat treatment really that heals the fractures within the gems. You can imagine that being encased in this hard rock deposit for nearly 3 billion.
Have we lost Hayley there?
I think we have lost Hayley.
Oh no.
A certificate.
Oh, there she is, she's back.
Am I running out of time?
We lost you there for a second, Hayley, but yes, I think we probably need to move on.
I need to wind it up, but I just want to tell you that each and every gemstone,
yep,
comes with a certificate of origin. Whoopsie. Oh, there we go. You can see it if I hold it close to me. And the certificate of origin actually details each and every gem over 1 carat. And this is basically your gemstone's birth certificate and proof of authenticity. So it's endorsed by the government of Greenland. And so it's also, very, very valuable document that comes with each and every gem. So I think I could go on for ages, as you can hear. There's me in Greenland, just loving every moment, and what an incredible opportunity it has been for me to be able to introduce these gemstones into the market. So for more information, of course, go to our website or our social media, or of course you can email me directly or just pick up the phone. But I'm sure there's some questions. Thank you very, very much again for having me. And Yeah.
Thank you, Hayley. That's great. No, I really do appreciate, for yourself and Pia as well. It's there's so much to talk about, and just trying to cram that into 10-15 minutes is a very difficult challenge in itself. But yeah, we have had a few questions, and I've got a few of my own as well. So I thought we'd probably just I'd like to start really, I suppose, with just expanding a little bit on one of the two areas that I think people consider to be the important topics when it comes to responsible sourcing and responsible mining, and the two areas being usually breaking down into the people involved and the planet, so the environmental impact. So if we started with maybe just elaborating a bit about the how you're engaging with the local population, because I know you both touched on that. And I got the impression that maybe Fuli, it looked like quite a populated area, with the temple there and the community, whereas maybe in Greenland, you seem to be quite distant maybe from any great conurbation. But I just wondered, I suppose maybe just to know more about the kind of consultation process, how and if you've had any challenges that have, often there's a resistance, isn't there, to mining, and maybe things like whether the people working at the mines are from the local communities, and just the general benefits. And maybe here you could just start with that one.
Well, I'm not sure if it's the same in all countries, but to get mining licenses, most of the time you have to have, obviously you do your proposals, but you've also got very stringent rules and regulations. You've got to work with the government in order to be granted that license. Licenses only last for a certain amount of years as well. And there's lots and lots of things you've got to address. And obviously one of those is like whether or not the social side of things, how much you impact on that community around there. And so one of the things that the government does is actually does a survey to say, do you really want to mine on your doorstep type thing? And you're thinking, so the survey went out to the local community, which is actually, even though the Buddha and Jilin is the main town, you still got to get about now 45 minutes drive to go to this remote farm area. So it's lots of wild cows ronding around and wild herdsmen. So they basically did a survey around that area and said, do you want this mine? And they all absolutely put their hands together and clapped and said, yep, this is going to bring employment. They welcome the idea of the mine there. It's actually on a nature trail as well. So there's parts of it which you get tourism of, a bit like the Inca Trail, where you get people wanting to go and visit it because it's just breathtaking, the scenery. But if you can bring employment there as well, then it's a win-win for everybody there. And so if we can take on local people for employment, then we will. Obviously, it's different when you've got to have geologists or people with certain amount of experience in those fields. So if we can bring it on people, we will. Otherwise, we've got to take other people from other areas of China or farther afield to do different parts of the role. But the actual daily running will hopefully be made up of some of the community around the mine. So, yeah.
And Hayley, how is it in Greenland, in your situation?
Yeah, well, and actually, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, our license is issued by the government of Greenland. So we work very, very closely with them. We have an agreement, an impact benefit agreement as well, in which we report to the government along every step of literally what it is that we do. As you could see from the images, and as I spoke about earlier, this is an extremely isolated location. Everybody that works at the mine is Greenlandic national. And in terms of gender, we have 8% of those are women, in fact. So we have both men and women involved in our mining operations and our sorting and operating machinery. And unlike many other mining operations, particularly in the diamond industry, there's just a small amount of employees. We've got about 30 people at the mine, and this is not hundreds of people who are mining. These are mostly operating machinery and technology and computers, etc., etc. But yeah, and our support, as I'd alluded to earlier, is also through the Pink Polar Bear Foundation, which is an independent, it has been set up independently by their own founding members, but it is our opportunity to support the local community. And you know, it's very, very interesting because also this is the first time that a colored gemstone has been discovered in Greenland, really. So you know, we have mixed emotions in terms of mining. You know, the country do not want real exploitation per se happening in Greenland. You know, they don't want you know, they don't want that. They want to be assured that the mining activities are carried through responsibly, and that the companies that are involved are doing it in absolutely the right way. But of course, they do also want recognition for their deposits. So, you know, this is something that they're extremely proud of. And, you know, we go to great lengths, the company goes to great lengths to make sure that everything that we do is in keeping with, you know, Greenlandic culture, and including and involving as many local, you know, when I say local, you know, Greenlandic people as we possibly can. So, you know, this is very, very important. You know, this can also be tricky because what gets marketed and sold in other parts of the world, you know, it would be different to how it gets done on the ground there. But yeah, so far so good. We're having a great experience. We have a very good relationship with the government of Greenland Ministry of Natural Resources. And yeah, the Pink Polar Bear Foundation is really our way of saying, hey, you know, yeah, we're mining. We are introducing your gemstone to the world. We basically put Greenland on the map as a responsible source of ruby and pink sapphire. So, you know, everybody's very thrilled about that. And we continue to do so.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, that in different countries, the level of government involvement that you see in mining in general, but also specifically in gemstone mining, where it's dependent really on how important that is to the economy. But I would have thought in both your cases, obviously Chinese economy being quite massive, I would imagine, compared to the Greenlandic economy overall, and quite diverse. But I think what you're both doing things that are very progressive in terms of the mining operations. So perhaps I'm just wondering whether, for example, in Greenland, if the government did see that in the future they would want to do more mining in a considered way, how they might use what you're doing at the moment as a model, and then also perhaps in China, where there's already lots and lots of mining, whether they would see things being done by Fuli as being a good example, so being able to change some of the existing mining in other areas or in other gemstone mines within China, based on the types of things that you are proposing and then implementing. So Hayley, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, you know, I can't speak for the government of Greenland and you know, what they have in mind, but certainly they you know, we have a good relationship with them. I think that they do see Greenland Ruby as setting an example, although we are the only colored gemstone mining operation and license actually in Greenland. And you know, achieving a license like this, being awarded a license such as this, is no easy feat. You know, this has taken years and years and years and years and years of exploration, of bulk sampling, and a massive investment, you can imagine. Yes. So we don't see anybody else on the horizon being able to achieve what the company has done to date. So we have, in our own capacity, identified other deposits which the company will in time explore and start mining and bring to market. But you can imagine that this also takes years and years and years. And in terms of other licenses, they do exist, you know, held by companies of other countries. There are some Canadian miners, there are some Australian-owned companies, and of course other European companies that have come to Greenland and applied for licenses. But as of yet, this is still in the exploration phase. And you know, anybody that knows anything about mining licenses in general, goes exploration, and then you know, after exploration, you get awarded what they call exploitation, which is really a word that I hate, but it's been around for a very, very long time. But an exploitation license is what needs to be achieved to actually, commercially do the mining, marketing, and selling of the gems, of the gemstones. So we are the only company in Greenland actually with the exploitation at this stage, exploitation license. So yeah,
sorry, and Pia, how do you feel that you're viewed by the government, and how they might use your experiences?
Well, I think obviously the key sort of management, they're already been in jade mining but never done gemstone mining before, so they've been in it around 15 years. I think, and I can't obviously speak like Hayley, I can't speak for the government of China, but it was interesting right at the beginning.
Oh, come on, Pia.
No, but right at the beginning, first of all, we had Dunhua. So you've got your national government, the PRC government, and then you have regionalized governments. It's a bit different to over here. So the Dunhua government had to give their blessing first of all. So first of all, you get the buy-in from them. So they were actually really excited about it, excited that someone was going to take this mine forward and bring something, and they're proud of it. They've talked to us about working with us to develop a peridot museum, have an educational place there. They want it to open it up so that the world can come and see it. So everything we do, like Hayley said, you've got to be responsible in every single thing you're doing. So you might think that this person, we're talking to Everledger, who've done provenance proof with Google, and we're speaking to all of these different organizations, and they've all can do a little bit, but you've got to bring and knit it all together to make it work for this new deposit. So whatever we do here might not be right for Greenland. What Greenland does might not be right for us. The end game is to bring the gemstone to market in a responsible manner with traceability, with the local employment, bring it to market so you can help young up and coming designers to the big brands and put this gemstone on the map for the benefication of the society that lives around the mine, the government in general, opening up and developing and building relationships between countries. Because the amount of unbelievable things I come across, they're like, oh, China, and you're like, you have to, and like Hayley, next year when we're all allowed to travel again, I'm going to be bringing people to the mine. I'm going to be bringing geologists and gem labs and schools and colleges so they can go and physically see what's going on, which for me, the education side of things is really, and opening up people's eyes to see what's going on in this type of mechanized mining is really important for the industry as a whole, So working with the local government, and literally within about, I've been there a year and a half or so now. So it's the local government, and then the main government then came on board and said, yeah, this is something we're going to be proud of every step of the way. So we'll be having optical sorters and all sorts of things that haven't really existed before, but certainly with peridot, well, in the, now it's starting to happen in the color gemstone industry, but being more efficient, caring about what you're doing, making sure that you can repurpose the material, putting the lamb back to how you found it, all of those things which didn't happen 20 years ago. It was just, mine, take the gems and bugger off again, So,
do you think what you're doing, it will have that kind of knock-on effects, all that amazing stuff you were saying about recycling the ore and the tailings and things, that you can, other mines might emulate that?
Well, I think if they've got ore body that can be like repurposed, then why not? There's absolutely no reason why they can't. Obviously, you get the money men who've got to weigh up their side of things, but equally, the new generation of consumers, even that are coming through, are demanding that. So it's not that it's a nice to have. It's a given. You have to behave that way. In my opinion, I'm sure Hayley agrees. I'm sure you agree.
No, I absolutely agree, and I just
it is the way it is.
Really difficult in the color gemstone industry, but that's why it's so important that as industrialized companies like ours, we have that opportunity to tell these stories and lead the way in the color gemstone industry and give people the confidence in colored gemstones, because up till now there really has been this sort of gray area of responsibility, and colored gemstones come with this incredible mystique, and this is part of the mystery behind colored gemstones. But we really want to take away the mystery, but keep the mystique of these gems.
Yeah, I mean,
our responsibility as companies that are able to do that, to shed light and really, make people realize that there is responsible mining going on out there.
And I think because we are new mines, you're starting from scratch, so you can get it right. So, and it can take longer, and there are, but by putting the foundations right in the beginning, you'll be like leading the way, and you're also building your business in the right manner, rather than trying to patch up stuff, of some things that have gone on in the past. It's, you've got the chance to do it right from the beginning. So
yeah, so in terms of the technology you're using, Hayley mentioned about the sophistication of your processing plant as well. What can you give us a couple of examples that aren't company secrets of the types of things?
Not really company secrets, and I see there's a question there. We do talk about Greenland Ruby as being the most colored, sophisticated colored gemstone mining operation. There's a couple of things that allow us to describe ourselves in this way. And first and foremost, just to see the location of the mine and how things actually happen in that location is just sophisticated on its own. Just coming in, we remove our trash by helicopter. So these kinds of activities, and then to go inside that big red box is really quite extraordinary. The level of technology involved in the machinery and the computer systems is really unbelievable. Actually, you've kind of got to see it for yourself, frankly. But it's highly sophisticated. It's very, very high tech. And then, just the ability to track and trace. This is one of the hardest things to achieve in our industry. Like, how do we achieve that? This is also one of the reasons why the colored gemstone industry is sort of lagging a little bit behind in this area, because it's almost impossible to track and trace, from a rough through to cut and polished into the hands of the consumer. Like, this is hugely logistically challenging. I mean, it's almost able to achieve, but at Greenland Ruby, we're able to do that by a proprietary inventory control system, whereby everything is tracked from the initial parcel of rough from the mine and through its journey. And it's literally it's sort of our own little sort of internal blockchain, so to speak. But each parcel gets sort of separated down and down and down, almost like a family tree, until each individual gem has its own identity number. And just keeping track of that is a mammoth undertaking.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So when we talk about sophisticated, that's a little bit of how we're doing it, and the innovation involved in that. We're doing things in our industry that's never been done before. So from that point of view, that's how we sort of talk about ourselves as being sophisticated.
Right, I see. So, I mean, certainly, of course, compared to, like I alluded to in the introduction, the majority of gemstones, colored gemstones, coming from very, very tiny operations and very basic operations. Of course, you've got that advantage that you're able to have increased, as you say, sophistication, better technology. I'm guessing better things like the separation of the rough material from the ore and grading it and processing it. Those kind of things that the most of the miners that I deal with could only dream of.
I think you've also got to look at, like Hayley said, colored gemstones. There's hundreds of different varieties of colored gemstones, and it's really interesting if you look over 1,000 years of history. Like with I can only talk about pearl. Obviously, you can talk about ruby as well. But gemstones people fall in love with them. They fall out of love with them, because unless they're marketed, and they're brought to light, then people forget about them. Peridot was loved by the Egyptians, and in fact, they think that Cleopatra's emeralds were actually peridots. They were called night emeralds because the biggest mine there was in Egypt of peridot. And there's all that myth and lore that goes with it. But if you don't have consistent awareness of a gemstone, it falls off the planet, gets forgotten about, and then suddenly another gem that gets someone big and shouting about it gets all the glory. But it benefits the whole gemstone as a whole. So you'll have fully in it a mechanized mine or industrialized mine bringing the product, but that builds awareness with the end consumer, which then also opens up the opportunity for other artisanal miners to sell their wares on it. So provided they've got someone to represent them in the marketplace as well, to help them bring it to an international stage, it benefits the whole industry. you know, the diamond industry dominated the market from literally from the 40s right through to the 90s, and then suddenly all women were getting engaged with diamond engagement rings, because we've been marketed to, you know, you weren't in love unless you got diamond. But what about all those other gemstones that got forgotten about, and all those artisanal miners that got forgotten about because of the big diamond thing that came along? Yeah. But if you're clever and if you're wise about it, everybody benefits from it by marketing it correctly, being transparent, being open and honest, helping, like, you know, I've worked in other mines before where you've gone and helped artisanal miners like know where to mine. Bring in your geologists who know the technological data to help the artisanal miners. There's things like that we can do as a bigger corporation to help other smaller miners. You know, there's lots of things like that you can do and bring the industry together. So it's not just about, you know, a company that's, you know, bringing gemstones to product. There's a much bigger picture to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's our responsibility, you know, because not everybody's got marketing departments or budgets, because you know, why do we wear diamond engagement rings? Because De Beers told us to do that, you know, and there are so many opportunities, and that is actually our opportunity, you know, to share our knowledge and education and tell these stories. And we do it not just for our own companies. I mean, I know I've known here a long time.
You're very much preaching to the choir here at the Coloured Gemstones. So I won't disagree with you there.
I'm so in love with coloured gemstones, and you know, I do it for our industry because there's such an enormous opportunity, because coloured gems have been so forgotten about in those diamond heydays, you know. So we really are shedding light on the coloured gemstone industry in general, by telling these incredible stories and, you know, making people interested in origin and colour.
I'm conscious that our time, is ticking away, and there's, I've been nudged that there have been a couple of questions from the floor that I haven't picked up on. So just a quick one, hopefully for Hayley, first of all, is whether you have any Padparadscha type pinks.
Yeah, I saw that question popping up. So we do have the Padparadscha, which for anybody out there who doesn't know, it's sort of the orangey, peachy tinted sapphire variety, and we do have, because like I said, you know, we have the color range right from the deep red right to the icy pinks and sort of every tone in between. And we have had some GIA reports of Padparadscha, which is really super exciting. Excellent. And let me just say though that our treatment, the heat treatment, the borax, does not enhance the color. Our color is there. It is to heal the fractures that may run to the gemstone. So the heat treatment does not enhance or change the color of the gem. It simply heals the fractures, which allows us, like I said, to responsibly bring these gemstones to market with, you know, fewer breakages, and to really keep it stable and secure. And the treatment is, of course, you know, stable and irreversible. But the answer to that is yes, we do get Padparadscha. Very, very small percentage, but they are there.
Okay, thank you. And then another one for you, Hayley, actually is going back to this, the connection with the community, that we've had a question about whether your deposit concession was the same one held by True North Gems.
Yes, I saw that question from Greg. Hi, Greg. Yeah. I'm happy to hear to see that Greg was in our audience. Greg, it is the same deposit as what True North was actually working on for many, many years, as you know, in developing the mining operation with the company LNS that now owns this mining license, and actually built the mining operation in this location. So True North Gems was the original company, and you know, after many, many years of exploration, they simply ran out of money. The government of Greenland then allocated the license to the company that was responsible for building, and who frankly had a better relationship with the government. So as you know, Greg, there was a lot of mistrust with True North Gems. Unfortunately, I think that just goes, like what we alluded to a little bit in our conversations, hand in hand with mining, with exploration. So True North Gems was not successful in bringing these gems to the marketplace. The company is now owned by LNS, which is a family-owned Norwegian group. And they've been operating in Greenland for a very, very long time.
Okay, thank you very much for that one. And then actually there's a third question, Hayley. Sorry, Pia.
No, it's fine.
So from Mike.
Hayley's mind is way more developed than ours, so we
Absolutely. But your turn.
From Arabelle on the Fair Luxury team, so she's asking for a bit of clarification about the difference between the mechanized mine and sophisticated mine, and really how the local population will benefit from the revenue.
Yeah, look, I mean, you know, when we speak in terms of local population, you know, there are so few people in Greenland. As I said, there are 50,000 people, you know, that live on the entire island, and in Nuuk, which is the capital city, only 18,000 population. So, you know, this is a very, very small community. And in actual fact, in the mining location in Apalutop, which is an hour by helicopter southwest of Nuuk, 180 kilometers, you know, there's very, very few local inhabitants. We bring everybody, you know, from the city in which they live, or the town in which they live, I should say. So how does it benefit the local population? Well, like I mentioned, we only employ local people, local Greenlandic people at the mine. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, you know, this putting Greenland on the map as a responsible source of ruby and pink sapphire does, of course, benefit in general the country. And then through the Pink Polar Bear Foundation, which is really why we set it up. And, you know, while it's early days of the foundation, you know, with every gem that we sell goes into the foundation, this is really where we hope to really make an impact on the country of origin by our contribution. And at the moment, we are involved in a 3-year contract with a local sewing workshop that sews sealskin pouches for their traditional costumes, and they're trying to keep this craft alive. And we're engaged in a 3-year sponsorship contract with them. We are also working with the government of Greenland on sponsorship of PhD students. You know, also what we want to do is the University of Greenland, that was the University of Greenland, not the government. The University of Greenland up till now doesn't really offer any training or skills in the gemology and the geology. They do some geology, but they have had no gemology skill set or learning at the University of Greenland. And we do hope that through Greenland Ruby, we'll be able to encourage this kind of education locally, because they were never concerned with it before. There was no gemstone mining operation. So yeah, that's what we hope to achieve in the long term. And of course, also encouraging local artisans to work with us and to design jewelry and to you know, ultimately, you know, cut gemstones locally. But you know, anybody who knows our industry, the big picture of this is, because there is no local industry in cutting or processing, that this has to be removed for now. So who knows what happens in the future.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, that is the case, isn't it, in a lot of producing countries, that you just don't have the different capacities in country in terms of the cuttings and treatment and that.
We would love to do it locally, but you know, we can't. I mean, the company would be able to provide like that. So for now, we have to, because we work in such quantity, we have to remove that out to the experts in another location and then give back in other ways. You know, in our case, to think
exactly. And I suppose, Pia, for you then, at least you have within China, of course, massive resource in terms of the gem industry already. So
yeah, and you know, it's phenomenal how much it's grown. It's interesting when I speak to other colleagues in the industry, like Michael Schlemdinger, who's a gemstone person, and he said even when he was visiting gem cutting facilities over 2-3 years ago, you know, how much it's come on leaps and bounds, and the processing and the learning, you know, they're so eager to learn, and the speed that they learn is incredible. And they're like open arms, sort of, you know, you've got geologists there now, you've got gemologists, you've got all of the labs are trying to get in there, like IGI and all of them the labs are trying to build their awareness in China as well, because there is this absolute love for the industry. You know, people going to study jewelry design, studying gemology, they're embracing it. And it's just, and then also when you see the side of the consumerism of, you know, the pandemic has been really impacted, but people have found ways to shop, and they've fallen in love with jewelry, real jewelry. They want real jewelry, they want real gold, they want real gemstones. It's not the pace that's moved is incredible, you know, just witnessing that, and all of the communication platforms they use, and it's just phenomenal, really phenomenal. And they'll always find a way to do something. They don't go, oh, you know, like in the old days, you'd ask someone if they could help you, and it's taken about 6 weeks, and they'll be like, we can have it ready in 2 to 3 weeks, or, you know, they're just efficient, you know. And yeah, what it is, it's interesting. So
sounds like a great environment to work in.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think it'll be great when I can bring a few people out there with me to go and see it. You know, I think we'll have a very good time and learn. I think so.
I am conscious that the talking of time, the time is ticking away. We just had one other question actually come through from Clara about whether either of you are aware of any projects involving traceable and responsible gemstones in India, or involving any Indian companies. That's another major.
You mean in terms of mining? I mean, I can speak for ourselves. We actually do our cutting in India, and the company that we are involved with are also going through their RJC certification. So, you know, they are very much on board with the rest of our industry in terms of what needs to be done. But you know, that's the company that we're working with. I can't really speak for others, but I am aware that this is happening in parts of India, because of course they have a big responsibility to comply as well. You know, I mean, they want to be part of it. Like,
yes, they do. It's sorry, go on.
At the end of the day, it's the end consumer as well as wanting it. So, you know, it's not, you've got to do the right thing, I think, and I think it's great if we can all help each other in the industry and explain experiences as well and put people in touch with the right people. And if people want to ask me or contact me afterwards, I'm happy to share. You know, it's the only way we're going to learn and get stronger as an industry across all levels, all countries. So
that's great. Right, so I think just then to finish, I guess really maybe in just a couple of lines from each of you about how you see things going in the immediate future, what your kind of next step is, and also just to answer the final question I think we had in the chat was, of course, where can we or will we be able to buy your gemstones?
Shall I go?
Go on,
We've got some exciting projects coming up. Obviously, August is coming up soon, which is Peridot month. So we've got a few amazing projects that we'll be unveiling and launching. And Instagram is one of our channels of pushing out our news. And if it's to do directly with jewelers and things, we're really excited about being able to bring the mine online next year. So hopefully May, June next year we'll be bringing, and we are all really wanting the trade shows to get going again, or so the industry can meet as a whole. We're doing sponsoring the jewelry cut, as you know, which is hopefully going to happen in October, which we'd love to see you all there in London. We're meant to be at Gem Genève if it happens, meant to be in Hong Kong if it happens. So it's been a bit of a magic carpet type thing, like moving around. So and if people want to be able to buy gemstones, they can contact me.
Okay.
So,
great.
And
Thank you. And Hayley?
Thanks, Pierre. So actually July is Ruby month, and with that coming up, we are super excited to be launching our Ruby Cloud, which is a B2B platform where registered guests can browse and buy rubies and pink sapphires from Greenland in the comfort of their couches, their home office, their car, however you want to do it. And this is an initiative that we've been talking about for a number of years, but has been fast-tracked through the pandemic, with people not being able to travel to trade shows, to buying offices. We really want to bring the technology of buying gemstones in so much more accessible, so that once people gain the trust of our platform, they know that they can browse and buy without having to jump on a plane or attend a trade show. So we are getting ready to launch that in July, and it's super exciting. You can imagine it's been a huge undertaking to get more than 15,000 gemstones onto the platform, all with a very a high res images and a video rotation. It promises to be a great experience, and like I said, it's for B2B only. So you know, this is really.
Where is the stock held? Is the stock held in Bangkok then?
The stock is actually being held in Paris.
Oh, wow.
Held in Paris. You know, it depends on the quantities and it depends on what people are looking for. We expect that the Ruby Cloud will really interest designers who want to, you know, buy one or a handful of gemstones, and that will come from our Paris office. And you know, anybody who, you know, is looking for larger quantities, which is, you know, something a little bit different, you know, that will be done probably through our Bangkok office, where, you know, we do all of our sorting and major distribution. So that's very exciting.
Some very exciting months ahead then.
Yeah.
We look forward to news from both of you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I think we're going to have to wrap it up. We could easily speak for another couple of hours. I'm sure there's so many areas that I haven't really touched on with you today in great detail, and I would love to do that. But as you say, your details have just gone up in the chat, so I'm sure people will contact you if they want to talk further about anything. So it just really remains for me to say thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us this afternoon, for sharing your experiences and all of that information about your mining operations. For me personally, it's been great. I hope it has been for the audience. I'm sure it has been as well. So yeah, thank you very much, and thanks everyone else for coming along and listening. So we will see you next time.